You might have heard something when that got started, but just want to let you know that we record these. We post them to the website afterwards, so anyone that's unable to join will be able to get the same information. So we'll get started now. My name's Amy Birch. I'm a traffic engineer and transportation planner and consultant that works with NDOT to help facilitate the traffic calming program. And so also with me, we have Dylan Weaver, a consultant who's helping me to monitor the chat and take notes as we go along to make sure we are noting the concerns and questions you have, as well as answering those questions when we get to them. So during the process, we have a chat box here. Feel free to, if you're joining online, you can put your questions or comments in the chat, and we'll get to those as we go, or you can certainly unmute and ask those questions as we go along. That's just fine. But as we go through the presentation, if you wouldn't mind keeping yourself muted, just so everyone can hear and we don't have feedback noise. So with that, I'm going to get started. I'm sharing my screen, and we're here to talk about Heritage Drive and Walker Terrace. These two streets are close by each other, so we're doing a joint meeting to talk about the traffic calming projects on these two streets. So let's do some background information about what is traffic calming. This program, we call it the Neighborhood Street Traffic Calming Program, focuses on residential streets. So streets just like your two streets, and we look to do physical solutions to encourage slower driver behavior on residential streets. So we're really targeting speed reduction, and that's what our tools that we have primarily targets. So we're not implementing this type of traffic calming devices or measures on streets like Old Hickory Boulevard. Those types of streets are not eligible for traffic calming. That's other things and tools that can be done for those streets, but we're focused on residential streets. And we consider this to be a kind of a quality of life program in terms of making people feel more comfortable on their residential street. We often talk about the 3 E's of traffic calming, being education. We do that through some external education, also through these meetings of neighborhood meetings to talk about the reasons why we want and need drivers to slow down, particularly on residential streets. Also enforcement, that's the job that the police department does, which is certainly a huge job. We would love for the police to be able to monitor and ticket all the streets in town and really get drivers to slow down and deter that speeding. But it just can't, that can't happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Police department has a really big job to do. They certainly are partners in this program and the city's goals for reducing speeding. But engineering is where this program really comes into play, and that's what NDOT focuses on, is the engineering, the modification of the street, or implementing tools on the street to get slower speeds. So this slide is showing the correlation between speeding and a pedestrian survivability, because we're really focused on safety and Vision Zero, which is the city's goal to achieve 0 fatalities on our streets, both pedestrian and vehicular fatalities. But this slide is showing the correlation between vehicle speed and a pedestrian's chance of survival. So at 25 miles per hour, which is the posted speed limit on most residential streets, at 25 miles per hour, the pedestrian's chance of survival of being hit by a vehicle is 89%. But then as that speed goes up, the chance of survival really declines. As at 45 miles per hour, a pedestrian's chance of survival goes down to 35%. So the severity of crashes goes up with speed, and I think that's pretty apparent, but also the ability for a driver to avoid a collision altogether can be improved with slower speeds, because at a slower speed, driver has more time to react, to see the incident or something in the roadway to avoid, and so the crash can be avoided altogether. The cone of vision for a driver to see what's maybe just outside the roadway or along the roadway is more narrow at faster speeds, and it's wider at slower speeds. So we really want to achieve these slower speeds for safety. This is a very popular program, and it continues to be well funded by Metro Council, and is a large program within NDOT. As of last summer, when these two streets were selected for the program, there were over 500 neighborhood streets that had applied for traffic calming. In the summer of the end of summer, early fall of 2023, 85 neighborhood streets were selected for the program. It was a larger selection than normal because of some surplus budget that had been identified through council and identified and allocated to this program. So as opposed to the typical number of streets that would have been selected, which was about 25, it was an 85 street selection then. So the pink lines on this map on the right are just showing the streets that had applied for traffic calming. And just to give you kind of an idea of where that is, and it's obviously in the density where the density is in Davidson County. Outside of the neighborhood street traffic calming program, you may have other needs to reach Metro departments, and we always like to plug the Hub Nashville, because it's a great resource. It's a way to ask for services or inquire about issues, and it reaches the correct department for whatever the need or service issue is. So you can reach the Hub through dialing 311. There's also online option, hub.Nashville.gov, or there's an app you can download to your smartphone and submit requests. And when you make requests, you get a request number that you can follow up with. And it's just a really easy way to reach the right Metro department for the service that you need. So it's not just NDOT issues, it's Metro Stormwater, NES, if a street light's out or traffic signal's not working or sign's been knocked down, that's a great way to report that and get the request heard. So let's go back to the traffic calming program now. I told you that we had 500 streets that had applied for traffic calming. And you're probably asking, well, how did these streets get selected? Because we're here to talk about Heritage and Walker Terrace. So those streets were selected through a prioritization process. All the streets that are applied for traffic calming, we do this prioritization twice a year. And it's based on data points that we collect for each street. So every street that's applied for, we go out and we measure the traffic volumes and the speed on the street. And the vehicular speeds, that criteria is made up of 45% of the score. We compare what we consider the prevailing speeds over the posted speed limit of 25 miles per hour. And then we also look at the volume. That's worth 25% of the score. We also look at trip destinations. So that might be places that are near the street that's been applied for that would encourage people to walk to and from. Think places like schools, parks, libraries, greenways. So that's worth 5% of the score. We also look at non-driver accommodations, so whether or not there are sidewalks on the street, or are there bike lanes on the street, or transit stops nearby where we would expect people to be walking to and from the street or needing to walk along the street. And then we also look at 10 years of pedestrian crash data to determine if there's been any pedestrian crashes along the street, and that's worth 10% of the score. So these two streets in your neighborhood were selected. So we're talking about Heritage Drive between West Old Hickory Boulevard and Nesbitt Lane, and then Walker Terrace between Pima Road and Williams Avenue. So on the left side of the screen, I'm showing some of our data points for Heritage Drive. We measured the 85th percentile speed at 40 miles per hour. So I want to explain what the 85th percentile speed is. That is the speed that 85% of the traffic that we measured over the course of a day was going that speed or below. So 85% of the traffic's going 40 or below, but that means that 15% of the traffic was going over 40 miles per hour when we measured that. You know, the speed limit is 25 miles per hour. So that's quite a bit of speeding. And then the daily volume is just about 1,600 vehicles per day. So that's the two-way traffic volume, both directions combined over the course of 24 hours. This street, it has the buffered bike lanes on it. Those are relatively new. And then there's not any sidewalks, and it's considered a local street. And then looking at Walker Terrace data, the 85th percentile speed was measured at 35 miles per hour. The daily volume is just over 1,100 vehicles per day. The street width is 23 feet. And there's not any markings on this street. So there's no sidewalks, and it's also a local street. So now I have a map I'm showing of these two streets and where they are. So I'm highlighting Heritage Drive and then Walker Terrace here in the middle. This is a snapshot from NDOT's online tracker map of all the traffic calming projects in the city. And so the colored lines that you see on the map are the various stages of where these streets are in the program. So some streets have been completed. They've already received vertical measures, and those have been installed. I think these two to the south of Old Hickory Boulevard are East Marthona and West Marthona. And those two streets had vertical measures installed. And then Williams Avenue, that is the northern border of Walker Terrace, the terminus of Walker Terrace. Williams Avenue was selected for the program in an earlier round, I believe, and has gone through the process, but is waiting on the construction to happen. So that's where it is in the program. So these are the two streets and the terminus that we're working with for this project. So I'm going to talk now about our toolkit. Our most popular tool that we use, because it's so effective, neighborhoods tend to really like it, is speed cushions. These are modular devices that are rubberized and kind of like humps, but they're drilled into the pavement and installed, so they have some vertical height to them. At their highest, they're 3 inches high. And we like these. You can see in all these pictures that there are gaps between these separate cushions, and that allows emergency vehicles to straddle them more easily, and so they're not quite as affected. But the width of these devices still impact and affect passenger vehicles. So they have less impact to emergency vehicles, but are still very effective in calming and slowing speeds for passenger vehicles and pickup trucks. So depending on the characteristics of the street, the width of the street, and what the pavement markings are on the street, we can configure these in many different ways. They can have different types of markings on them. Those markings are reflective so that you can see them at night. On the left screen of your screen, you'll see that we pair these with warning signage that says speed cushions and advisory speed of 20 miles per hour. That's generally what these are designed to travel over, anywhere between 20 and 25 miles per hour as you travel over them. Also, they come in different lengths as you drive over them, but our typical length that we use is 10.5 feet long, and that's shown in the picture to the bottom left. We're just giving you a profile view of what these look like down at the pavement and how long they are. Sometimes when we're working on a street that has bike lanes or something else that we want to sort of protect, we will use the flexible delineator posts on in the bike lane buffer.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
George is trying to enter the meeting virtually, but it's asking for a password. Is that correct? Through WebEx?
There shouldn't need to be a password to join.
He's tried everything, all the information on the card, and it's letting him join. Because we can't see your slide or anything.
Yeah. It should be tinyurl.com /.
Yeah, / Heritage Walker Terrace. And he did that and he put in the meeting number, access code, but it won't let him join virtually.
I see a password on here. It is capital
The
P.
code?
No, it's a capital P, small G, capital M, small W, capital N, small S, small Z, small M, 933.
Okay, can you repeat that slowly?
Yes. Capital P is in Paul, a small G is in Gary, capital M, Mary, small W, capital N as in Nancy, small S, small Z as in zebra, small M, Mary, and the number 933.
Okay, he got it. That's invalid.
Oh, no.
I think you might have to try it again.
Let me see.
PGMWN, and there's lowercase and smaller case, so I don't know. It looks like that. The uppercase P, lowercase G, uppercase M, lowercase W, uppercase N, lowercase S, lowercase Z, lowercase M, and the number 933.
You have to write it down. Oh, still can't get it.
Okay, yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, there shouldn't be a need to use the password even.
I'm sorry?
There shouldn't be a need to use the password.
Can you try it again? Okay, we'll try it again. You can continue your meeting.
I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you. Thank you.
And see if it was. She said.
Yeah, there is a, if you go to NDOT's website, so if you go to Traffic Calming. .Nashville.gov.
Okay.
At the bottom, there's the links to the meetings, all of our traffic calming meetings that are, upcoming, and you should be able to click on the one that takes you to the Heritage Drive one. And maybe if
Okay.
you use that link, it should
Okay.
work.
Okay, we'll try it. Thank you.
TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. Thank you. And we're sorry. Hope you're able to hop on.
Yeah. Those speed calming, are those also called speed tables?
Tables are a little different, and that is my next slide. So I'll describe those, but they're made of the same material. The tables are usually a little longer, and they're connected all the way across the width of the pavement. So they don't have these gaps between the cushions that help the emergency vehicles travel over them with minimal impact. So the tables are flat on top, and they're usually 14 feet long, but they're made of the same material. We use the same signage or similar signage with them, and they're the same height, but it goes edge to edge on the pavement. So these vertical measures, NDOT has done some before and after studies just to learn how effective they are here in Nashville. And so a study of 6 locations where we've installed speed cushions. We did a comparison of the average speed, and before the cushions were installed, the average speed was 31 miles per hour. And then after the cushions were installed, the average speed was 22 miles per hour. And then a comparison of the 85th percentile speed showed that the before 85th percentile speed was 37 miles per hour, and then after was 25 miles per hour. So we find that they're very effective in doing the job that we're trying to achieve. Another tool that's used in this program are radar feedback signs. We will typically use these in places where maybe the volume is too high for the vertical measures, or there's some curvature, either vertical curvature or horizontal curvature, so hills and curves that we can't install the cushions at, or if it's a case where communities is not in favor of the vertical devices, then we might use these radar feedback signs. But they can be effective. They provide that constant data collection, so we can analyze how effective they are. But the before and after studies found that the average reduction of speed was 6 miles per hour. And then the 85th percentile speed reduction was 7 miles per hour where these were deployed. We'll also use some pavement narrowing through pavement markings. When we have a wide street that doesn't have any markings, we might install the white edge lines, or if it's a street that has center line markings already but doesn't have the white edge lines, we can narrow those lanes further. Bulb outs and chicanes are some other tools that we use with markings and delineator posts. And so the bulb outs are the picture on the left showing how we can stripe out and narrow the crossing distance of an intersection, kind of define that parking zone where parking is allowed and not allowed close to the intersection, and it tightens that radius around the corner so that turning movements at the intersection can be slower and smoother. And then the pictures on the right are of chicane, which is essentially adding curvature to an otherwise straight street. Often this is done by alternating the on-street parking from side to side and adding some curves and lane shifts there on the lane on the street. So, you know, we have to have like the right width of street, on-street parking or something that would allow this type of installation. I think these pictures are from Fairfax Avenue in the Hillsborough Village area. Then traffic circles are another device. It's an intersection type of treatment where we'll create and install a circular island in the middle of an intersection that kind of creates traffic operation like a roundabout where you go counterclockwise around the central island. We need a pretty wide intersection in order to implement this type of tool. But the horizontal deflection that's caused by this island in the middle of the intersection causes drivers to slow down as they navigate through the intersection. So now we've talked, those are our tools in our toolbox. So now I'm going to talk about our proposed concept plans for these two streets. I think we're going to talk about Heritage Drive first, and then we'll get into Walker Terrace. But to orient you first, north is on to the right of the screen. So I've turned the aerial sideways just to get it to fit on the screen. So Old Hickory Boulevard is on the left side of the screen, and then Nesbitt Lane is on the right side of the screen. And then our street length is highlighted in pink. The area or the street that we're talking about, Heritage Drive. And so we're just showing conceptually the speed cushions and approximate locations where we would install these devices. And
What devices?
it looks like there's
Speed cushions. There's a little bit different than speed tape.
seven sets of speed cushions. And so these are, we would install them, I believe, in 3 sections. So 3 separate cushions, and they would have the center line markings and the arrow markings on them. And because of the bike lanes, we would incorporate the flexible delineator post with that to keep drivers from trying to drive around the speed cushion and enter the bike lanes. We want to avoid that scenario. So we have 3 sets. They're spaced at roughly 400 to 500 feet apart. So we have 3 sets between Old Hickory Boulevard and Williams Avenue, and then another 2 sets to Heritage Lane, and then another 2 sets as you go towards Nesbitt Lane. So I think I'll pause there and see if we have any questions about that concept and plan.
Hey, Amy, Ellen here. I have a question. I am wondering if NDOT has done a study or even just has sort of a general idea of the impact the bike lanes that were put in like a year or so ago or 2 years ago have already had.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, cool. I'm team bike lane for whatever it's worth, but I just wanted to check in on that. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got a question. At Heritage Drive and Old Hickory Boulevard, is there any chance of cameras? Because people are running red lights, and there's already been one person that in the last year and a half got killed there because they're running red lights all the time.
What was your question? Is there
Is there any chance of getting cameras on that intersection?
Cameras.
I maybe can answer that.
Let's go for it. Thank you,
There's not been any request or any initiation for cameras, particularly red light cameras. We just passed last year, maybe 2 years ago, to the legislation to move forward with license plate reader cameras that would be used for crimes, but we do not have, we do not have any legislation or any discussion about moving beyond those license plate license plate readers for red light cameras or anything like that. So there are no plans currently for any cameras anywhere in the city for red lights.
Really? Because there's people are running red lights there all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah. And like I said, there's already one person got killed there.
Yeah. Go ahead, Amy. If you want to, we can put in a request to have more, police presence there. But of course, while the police are there, people tend to obey the law. But when they leave,
what about caution lights as they come down towards that way, to where let them know that there is a light that's about to turn?
So I think this is a great example of something that we could put into the hub, because it gets to the right traffic engineers about the concern for this intersection. And I will also relay this information, but I don't think we can, that particular intersection, the signalized intersection, is not really part of this program and this project. But there are things that, can be looked at, whether or not the yellow time is long enough or the red time is long enough and things like that. So I think that's something that we can put into the hub.
I agree with the speed where you're putting the speed cushions, though. That sounds perfect, because on Heritage Drive, as you're heading to Old Hickory Boulevard, it's almost like an S curve. You're coming around the apartments and then coming back around where the DMV is. The three speed cushions, or whatever you want to call them, that would be great to slow people down.
Yeah, because they drive nuts in there.
Great, good. That's we like to hear the feedback that there's support and you like where they're going.
Absolutely.
We do have some limitations on this street, but we tried to lay them out to avoid it. Like, we can't put them in the curve, where the curvature is too great, but before and after is really what we're targeting. Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And so we put these in this series like this. So I'm not sure if you can see the screen, but it's, as you go from West Old Hickory to Nesbit, there's 7 sets, and they're spaced about 400 to 500 feet apart. And that's our ideal spacing, and that keeps drivers going a consistent speed on the length of the street. Because if we just put like 2 or 3 out there, they'd probably resume their bad driving behavior, speeding between those sets, and then maybe slow down really quickly at each device and then go over. But if you place them such that they can see the next set and they're coming up quicker, so there's less chance of people trying to speed between them to make up time. Also, I didn't mention this when I was talking about the cushions before, but when we place these in the roadway, we are looking at other things like street intersections, placing them not too close to the intersection, or driveways. So if you have a driveway right on Heritage Drive, we're not going to have it so close that you're driving sideways over these devices going in and out of your driveway. So we're looking at all those things when we place them. We also, like I said, we'll incorporate the warning signage with the cushions. So if there are no other questions about Heritage Drive, I'm going to talk about Walker Terrace, and we can always come back to this one too. Okay. So on Walker Terrace, this is a short street. And so again, I've turned the aerial sideways to the right. So north is at the right-hand side of the screen. That's Williams Avenue on the right. And then on the left is Pima Road. And so we're showing where the stop signs are. So on each end of Walker Terrace, you have a stop sign. And then the whole length of the street is about 800 feet. So because we place these typically 400 feet apart and 300 or 400 feet away from stop signs, we're just suggesting one set here on Walker Terrace, knowing that drivers are supposed to be stopping the stop signs. And then because these corner radii at these two intersections is pretty wide. The radius is really fanned out, so that allows drivers to kind of make those turns pretty quick. And especially if they're running the stop sign or something like that, they can make those turns really quickly. So we're recommending to use pavement marking, some striping to just tighten those corners up. So it doesn't change the pavement or anything, but it just tightens those corners so that drivers need to take those turns a little slower. It just tightens the intersection up altogether. So those are the two treatments we're recommending on Walker Terrace. Did we have anybody that joined us from Walker Terrace? There's not very many homes on this street, so and one other thing about this plan for Walker Terrace is Williams Avenue was already part of the program and is waiting on construction, which it includes speed cushions on Williams Avenue between, I think, the railroad crossing and Walker Terrace. So this will kind of be a continuation of that plan, essentially. All right. There's no other questions on the proposed plans. I'm going to talk really quickly about the program process and where we are in the program. Earlier I mentioned that this is an application process, so residents have an opportunity to apply for the traffic calming program twice a year. This year it was in March, and then another opening will be in September. And so from there, we do all of our data collection and prioritization, looking at all the streets that have applied, and those that rank the highest are the ones that are selected, and that's matched up with the budget that's available for the program at that time. So in this, like I said, we had 85 streets that were selected when these two streets were selected. And then we go into our neighborhood meetings and discuss all the tools in our toolbox and our proposed plan, get any feedback that you have about it, and then we'll go and make put together a more detailed design plan that's suitable for the contractor to install. And so once the design is complete, we'll typically go straight into the online ballot. The design process takes about 2 months, and then we do the online ballot. That's about a 2-month time period. And then if the ballot is successful, meaning that if 66% of those that vote in favor of the project, then NDOT will move it forward into construction, and that's about an 8 to 10 month time period to get the materials installed or the materials ordered, and work with the contractor to get it installed. I have on here, we're showing this second neighborhood meeting if needed. Sometimes we show the plan and it needs some refinement or major edits or something, and there may be a need to have a second neighborhood meeting. So that's always an option, but if it's not needed, we'd like to just move it forward and move on to the balloting phase after the design is complete. So the ballot is done with the postcard. It's sent via mailer, similar to the postcards that we sent The mailers will have a unique ID that's associated with each eligible property to vote. The voting is open for 6 weeks, so you'll know when the voting closes when you get that postcard, because that date is posted at the top of the card. And so respondents can vote yes or no for the project. And so if 66% of those that vote yes, then the project moves forward. On this postcard, there's information about the program. There's this information about, what constitutes a favorable vote or and project. And there's also a phone number on the card. So if anyone's unable to vote using the QR code and the online ballot, then they can reach NDOT and get some assistance with that. So that is there. And again, you have an opportunity to vote yes or no for the project. So this screenshot at the bottom is just a snapshot of what that kind of looks like, the online voting form. And at the very top of that is a link to the plans. So the full design plans will be completed and posted online prior to the ballots being sent out to the property owners. And so anyone that receives that, they'll have an opportunity to view the plan and before they vote, so they have that information to educate them. And then the ballot zone, we like to show where who's eligible to vote on the project. So ignore the red squiggly line on these maps. So I've got Heritage on the left side of the screen. This is just the tool that we use that Metro Planning has available to select these addresses. But the yellow highlighted parcels are the ones that are eligible to vote. Residential properties, churches, and schools get 1 vote. Only properties that abut the affected right-of-way are eligible to vote. And then oftentimes, or sometimes there's a case that there are owners with multiple properties on the same street. And so those owners get 1 vote. And then we don't count or allow for votes from vacant properties, and then businesses aren't eligible to vote. So for Heritage Drive, because of the larger residential complex at the center of the street, there are 248 eligible properties for voting. And then on Walker Terrace, it's a much shorter, smaller street, just with the few single family homes. So there's 7 properties there eligible to vote. So I'm showing our contact information for NDOT's NDOT.TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov is the email address there, and my name again, Amy Birch. You can reach me at Amy Birch at birchtransportation.com. And then
I'm sorry, Amy, I do have a quick question if you have a second.
Absolutely.
I'm curious how these votes typically go. Is there high community participation? Do those of us who live in abutting properties need to be talking to our neighbors about it?
Yes, we would love for you to talk to your neighbors, and the more votes, and knowledge about the project we find to be best. Turnout is typical. Turnout is around 20% or so. It's not
okay.
super high, but the pass rate is really high as far as projects being favorable. We do have some that fail the ballot vote, and so that's to be expected. But for the most part, well over 90% of the projects have voted in favor of the project. And if a project doesn't get a favorable vote, NDOT we'll come up with a plan B. And that's sometimes when we'll use the radar feedback signs or things that are not vertical measures in the street. So we will still do something to try to reduce the speeds because we've identified that there's a need for traffic calming on the street. So there'll be a less intrusive plan put together and installed.
Cool. And do you happen for this particular project to have a sense of community support right now, or is it too early in the process?
Yeah, I wouldn't know really until the ballot closes. I would say that, we sent out postcards for this meeting to, almost 300 people, 250 people. And we have kind of a low turnout on tonight's meeting, but, schedule's busy and so forth. But yeah, we'd love for you, if you are, you live in the larger community, the condo community, talk with your board about it, get the information out there. That's what we really want, is for people to know about the project and understand. If they have questions, you can direct them to us, to NDOT to answer those questions.
Great, thanks.
mhm.
Besides this meeting being recorded, is there somewhere where the materials are cataloged online?
We post them online, this meeting and all of our information. I'm showing on the screen now our TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. So that's where we post links to all of our meetings. The Metro's YouTube channel and all of the traffic calming meetings are posted there. Once the ballot closes, we'll post the ballot results there. So a few days after whatever the date is printed on the postcard, when the ballot closes, that's where that goes. And then also all the plans are posted on the website there. And they'll be categorized in sections of, voting in progress or voting closed. We try to keep those separated so they're easy to find. If you're logging in to vote, you can find that. We also have our traffic calming manual on the website there, and more information about, or the same information about the tools in our toolbox that we went over in our meeting. So all that information is there. And so then in September, when the application window opens again, that's where you'll be able to find that application. So we will communicate with your council member and applicant as far as when the ballots are coming out, so you can kind of expect those and look for those in your mailbox. Your council member might put it in a newsletter or something like that. Yes, when you get your postcard, don't wait. Go ahead and vote, because 6 weeks sounds like a long time for a voting window, but it will pass quickly. And if you don't do it right away, you might forget.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your attention and for such a great meeting. I'll issue everybody in the condo village a demerit for not showing up.
I have a question in the chat box. How are the apartment condo residences counted? So they are counted. Every condo is a separate condo. So each one is one vote, unless there's someone that owns multiple properties within that's for the condos. If there's someone that owns multiple properties within the condo development, then they just get the one vote. But in apartments, we typically think of as having one ownership. So that would have one vote for one ownership of an apartment complex. That's clear. And it's one vote per property too. So, not necessarily property owner, I should say, but one vote per property. So 2 people may be on the deed for a property, but that property gets one vote. So there's one unique ID associated with that one, with each property.
Question, Amy. It looks like, well, it sounds like everyone is on this call, at least is in agreement with the proposed traffic calming measures that you have on the presentation. If that is the case, and we don't need another second meeting, or would you recommend another one based on the attendance today?
I wouldn't necessarily, I think,
I think this would probably be what most of the neighbors would like to see, and I don't know, maybe some of the neighbors on the call can speak to that, but if we decide to move forward with what you've proposed, how soon will the ballots go out? I missed that on that timeline after this meeting.
yes. So we typically will get the ballots out within about 2 months from now. We try to speed that up, and we'll let you know, Councilwoman, and our applicant contact that they're coming out, so you can look for them. But yes, it's about 2 months. We put that detailed design together. We go out and measure in the field and just make sure that we're really comfortable with where these devices are located and away from driveways and so forth. And then that begins the 6-week window for the voting period.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I agree. What I've heard on this meeting is that it sounds like people are in favor of the plan that's been put together. So I would recommend that we just move forward and finalize that design and get the ballot cards out soon after.
Sounds good.
Any other questions that I can answer? All right. Hearing none, I appreciate you all joining, and I have my contact information if you have any questions that come up later. We will be in communication with Councilwoman Gamble when we send the ballot cards. Thank you for attending.
Thank you. Thank you
Let
for your
your
presentation.
neighbors know that they can find this meeting recording if they're interested on NDOT's website afterwards.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.